As Big Brother wraps up another season, we are joined by, well, I think people are calling him the best player ever, and he's not going to disagree with that, I'm sure. Big Brother veteran Dan Gheesling joining us on the line. Hey, Dan.
Jeremy, you're much too kind with that introduction. I would argue against that statement, but for the sake of time, let's just move on.
All right. Well,
how about we say that?
You'll give me that one. You'll let me pass. All right.
Yeah, I'll give you the pass on that. But no, I appreciate the introduction.
Well, okay. So, Exterminators, 3 a.m. I mean, let's talk about this season. I don't even know where to begin. Let's start with maybe the highs and lows. Best move that you've seen this year already.
Do you have a cricket sound effect on your show?
Oh, no.
That's the first thing that comes to mind when you say best move of this season. I'm just kind of sitting here waiting, for the crickets in my backyard to start just doing what they do. In terms of best move, it's hard pressed to find out. Maybe the fact that, McCrae accidentally fell into a showmance with Amanda and it's gotten him this far. I don't know. There's no moves in my mind that really stick out as, wow, that was a great play, or wow, someone really deceived someone. It's just a matter of, what we've seen this season of Big Brother is just people go with the majority, go with the quote-unquote house, and there was very few people that were willing to stand out from the crowd and actually make a move for themselves.
All right,
you tell me, give me a few, maybe if you refresh my mind about some big moves, but, I'm into Big Brother just like the next person. I just can't think of any.
No, okay, well, let me rephrase the question. Are there any all-stars that you would pick from this season?
I think you could pick a few people from an entertainment standpoint, meaning that people will side with them one way or another. I think you look at someone, the people that caused a lot of emotions this season from the people that watch the show. You look at someone like Amanda, and, she has, for whatever reason, I'm sure, we could sit here and talk about the reasons all day, but, she's garnered a lot of attention, not necessarily in the positive regard, but from a lot of people that were kind of rooting against her, and you always need people to root against, in the seasons of Big Brother. Now, whether or not she'd come back or get invited back, that's a whole other story, but in terms of, that wouldn't be for gameplay, that'd be more from an entertainment value. I could see her potentially getting voted back for that.
Is there anything that sticks out as the dumbest move?
Yeah, I think the thing that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me as a former player is that, these house guests have had so many seasons to watch and prepare, and now they're in this position, and you saw a lot of people this season make a lot of moves that weren't for their benefit. They were for the benefit of the house, which really was just a lot of people just trying to, float through the game. You look at someone like Erin during a double eviction, when she has a shot to make a move, and she just kind of gets pushed around and bullied around and makes something that's actually makes a move contradictory to her game. It seemed like things like that happen time and time again. From a gameplay standpoint, it was really baffling throughout this entire season.
In terms of then do's or don'ts for somebody who's about to go onto the show, obviously one of your do's would be watch previous seasons. What tips would you give? What advice? I know that you like to, mentor contestants. What would you suggest to them?
Yeah, one of the things I did is actually, and I timed it so that this batch of house guests would have the opportunity to read it. I wrote a letter to any future Big Brother house guest, and I put it on my blog. And essentially what I said is there's a handful of things, but number one is you have to go in there prepared to do whatever it takes to win, to be able to sit back and evaluate what's going on. And the key to doing that, I feel that if you look at some of the standout players to play this game, you can find a common theme in most of them, and that's the fact that they were able to remove their own personal emotions from any decisions they make. And it's not easy, but those that can do that, go on to make better moves and put themselves in better positions to win this game. And that's a huge tip that I would give people, is just remove your emotion from any decision-making and look at it from a strategic standpoint. Easy to say, very hard to do.
We've got to get back to the music. We're going to have more. Sit tight there, Dan. We're going to have more with Big Brother veteran Dan Gheesling right after this.
Today's best music with Jeremy Bradley.
Jeremy Bradley back here talking with Big Brother veteran Dan Gheesling. One thing that's also really hard to do is not judge people as soon as we see them. Now, having watched the show for years, I think a lot of people sit at home and go, okay, yeah, she's going to be the loud one, he's going to be the conniving one, whatever. Do you find yourself to be a good judge of character from the first show and then as the season evolves? I'll give you an example, actually, of what I'm talking about. My first memory of Helen, crying over wine, being really insecure. She gets a bit of power, all of a sudden she's a brand new player.
Yeah, I think, it kind of goes in two stages. One is when the cast is released. It's fun to kind of sit there and estimate how people are going to be and how they're going to act based on their backgrounds and their chyron underneath their name and that sort of thing. But once we start to see them maneuver in the game, I think that's what we're talking about. You brought the example of Helen. You saw her. For me, I saw her as a political consultant heading into this game. I'm like, oh, she's cut out for this game. With everything from moves you have to make in the political arena to advising people, I thought she would do really well in this game. And like you said, you saw a lot of tears from Helen, and that was something that I didn't really expect to see from her. And ultimately, when she did get some power, she got a little power hungry, and that cost her. So the hard thing is with this game, when you see someone, you can't judge them right away because the game changes people, the game affects people in different ways, and some people aren't focused when they get there, and they're focused on other things, or they get distracted, like we've seen with McCrae and his showman. As a super fan, I was hoping for so much more from McCrae because those are the types of players I like to root for because I know they love the game inside and out. But loving the game and watching the game is very different than playing the game, and I think McCrae has made a few moves this season that I'm sure he's going to regret when it's all said and done.
Talking about regrets, though, obviously you've had your fair share on the show. Do you have any regrets, or would you do anything differently now if you were to go back, another time on the show?
Yeah, I think in terms of regrets, between both seasons that I played, I literally have none because I can sit here and tell you a regret I would have from playing the game was that if I insulted someone on a personal level and made fun of, their background or how they looked or anything like that. And a lot of people know me for playing the game kind of, in a deceptive type manner and blindsiding people, but the one thing I never did was, really insult people because that'd be something that I would regret, and that if I watch back, it was played for my family, I'd be embarrassed of that. But in terms of game moves and things like that, I wouldn't regret anything that's happened.
Lots of controversial comments. I know Julie Chen has brought up the whole, racism and hateful things, just as you're saying. And so, is it easy to forget that the cameras are there? I don't know. Explain to me what your thoughts are on when these people were saying these things this season.
Yeah, I think the majority of people, if you take the average house guest, at some point, they let their guard down and they completely forget that they're being filmed. In my case, I knew what I was signing up for. I was hypersensitive at all times, but I was being filmed. You constantly have to censor yourself, and even if you make a joke that you may talk about with your friends or whatnot, that's not even off color, but for me, I didn't even want to. I don't speak crude in my everyday life, but even if those conversations came up, I would remove myself or try to remove myself from those situations in the house. But what you see in this season is completely different. You've seen a lot of comments that were, completely inappropriate that were said, and they weren't said in a way that, someone caught themselves and said, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that. It just kind of snowballed, and people kept adding to that conversation. And unfortunately, that's what I've spent, a lot of time talking about in interviews is the fact, that these people are saying these horrible things as opposed to what I love about the game, which is the gameplay and the moves and the deception. And it's been unfortunate in that way, but you can only hope, and I think they will, that everyone who said those things learn from it and move forward with their lives as better people.
Dan, we could chat with you all day. We're going to get back to the music. You know what? A segment 3 is coming up. Very rare on the show. More with Dan Gheesling right after this.
Today's best music with Jeremy Bradley.